why don't we start with some minutes of silence, and we can focus on the breath, and then just try to bring the mind to the present moment, and we can try to relax our body. So let's do that for a few moments, to sort of prepare ourselves for what we're going to talk about. And while we are observing our breath, if thoughts come into our mind, we just let them go. We don't engage with them. We don't follow the thoughts. We just notice them and let them go. And as our mind begins to be more quiet, more present, and our body becomes more relaxed, then we can begin to set our motivation for this evening, for this activity. So we have a precious human life, and we know it's precious because we've met the Dharma, and we are trying to practice. We're doing our best to practice. And one important pillar of our practice is to apply antidotes when afflictions arise. And afflictions are likely to manifest when we are stressed, when we are undergoing challenging situations, when our mind is not very stable due to circumstances around us. Yeah. And so when we face these challenging situations and afflictions arise, we're more likely to create negativity. We're more likely to create negative actions that will result in our suffering. But also, we are more likely to harm others. And we're more likely to hurt others with our actions, with our words, even with our thoughts. So it's important that we try to figure out how to keep our mind balanced and calm and our actions positive, even when things are not going so well. Yeah, even in the midst of upheaval, in the midst of challenging situations, not just for our own benefit, but also so we can contribute to the peace of mind and harmony and well-being of others. And so for that reason, we are here tonight to explore Buddha's teachings, to try to identify what tools he left us, he taught us to use in these kinds of troubling conditions and situations, so that we can then practice well and practice ethical conduct and practice benefiting others. So with that kind of motivation, now we can connect with Buddha by visualizing Buddha in the space in front of us. We have an image that can be our guide right on the screen. And we can just feel the presence of Buddha in front of us. And around us, we can imagine all sentient beings. And they're here. They're also wanting to apply the Buddha's teachings. And we're here to support that, to support their practice, their learning, their path. And so with that, we can go for refuge. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings not be separated from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of attachment and aversion. Okay. So, last week we left off as we were talking about the practice of taking and giving, Tonglen. And I wanted to make sure to explain that when we do that practice, we first start taking and giving from ourselves to ourselves. Yeah, that's kind of always what the teachers recommend, because it is a scary practice to do in the beginning. Somebody asked that question, yeah, last time, and yeah, it is an uncomfortable practice to do. And so when we start with ourselves, yeah, we kind of sort of test the waters, get used to it. And starting with ourselves is really easy. We're taking our future suffering and sending our future self all of our happiness and merit of the present. Yeah, it's very interesting and lovely thing to do. Yeah, we can even take the suffering that we might experience ourselves at the moment of our death, right? So we can take on that suffering, bring into the present, and then we can send to our future self at that moment of death. We can send ourselves all of our merit that we've accumulated so far, all of our merit, and all of our happiness and joy, and we send it to that particular moment in the future when we're dying. It's a very, very lovely practice, and it helps us start to open up our heart and to start to um, diminish our self-cherishing. Yeah. So this practice, as I mentioned, is targeted to self-cherishing. And then as we become more comfortable with the practice, we can expand that to the people that we care for, the people that we love, the people in our lives that we get along with, that we like, because those are also very easy to do, right? We all want to wish that we could take on the suffering of our loved ones, so that's easy. That's not so scary. And again, it helps us get used to the practice and starts opening our heart. Yeah, and even though we are doing this on the basis of people that we care for, we're still sort of chipping away at that self-cherishing thought. Yeah, and we're preparing ourselves to do the more difficult one, which is to do this for people that we don't like. Yeah, that becomes a little more challenging. So we do that further down the road. Further down the road, after we've sort of tried this practice with everyone that we like, everyone that we get along with, everyone that we care for, right? We tried first with us, ourselves, then with all the people that we care for, and we love. And then, yeah, when we feel strong enough, when we feel like, okay, I now got the hang of the practice, I'm not afraid anymore. I understand how it works, and I understand how it doesn't work, right? Now I'm going to go to the people that we don't like. And even when we do that, right, we start with the people that we don't like for very small things. Yeah. Okay. I don't like that person because I just don't like the way that maybe I don't like the way they talk, right? Maybe they talk too much and I can't handle it, right? So that's the kind of like a small little thing. And so, okay, maybe you can cope with that. And then we can move up a little bit. This person, yeah, I don't like that person because that person said something to me one time. Said something to me that hurt me. Okay, so I can start with that. I'm getting into a little bit more dangerous territory, but I can still handle it, right? So then we're still testing the waters there. And then we can go from that, we can go, okay, someone that did something a little bit more serious. Well, we're still not in blown up hate, okay? We're still not in blown up hate territory. But somebody who did something a little bit more serious that we found harmful to ourselves. And that way, gradually, we are sort of entering into more difficult territory. And then at the end, Yeah, we can really go and try this with people that really, really just push all of our buttons. Yeah. We always people always have one or two of those that just looking at them completely makes us bizarre. So we leave those people for the end. And then after we've done that, then we do this practice, the taking and giving for all sentient beings in all of the six realms, right? So then another part that's hard to do, at least it was hard for me, was to take from people, from beings in the hells, in the hell realms, like in the hot hells and the cold hells. That can be very unnerving in the beginning. Yeah. So if we're gonna do all of the six realms, maybe we can start with the God realm before before we do the hells, right? We can start with the God realm. We can go to the demigod realm. Those are a little bit more easier to handle, right? And then we can go humans. Okay, we can handle humans. And then we can do the unfortunate rebirths, like yeah, the hungry ghosts and the animals. The animals also may be easy to do, especially if we like animals, right? If we are drawn to cats and dogs and bunny rabbits and whales and things like that, then the animals may be quite okay to do. But then if you start going into the hungry ghosts and the hell beings, then that might be a little bit more difficult. We can leave those for the end. Yeah. When we are a little bit more we are becoming really, really well versed in the practice. I'm very comfortable with practice. So. And the important thing to remember is what I said last time, is that we're not really, we cannot really take on their suffering. Yeah, there isn't a mechanism to do that. But the purpose of that is just to open our hearts, to be willing to cultivate the attitude of being willing to take on the suffering of others. That's the key. And then that helps us counter really that self-cherishing thought that is so pernicious, and it's and it's so harmful to ourselves and to others. Yeah. So again, I want to mention that transforming adversity into joy and courage has a very beautiful chapter on this practice. Yeah. And so in that book, there is a part that it explains very deeply what it is that we are taking on, right? So yes, we're taking on the suffering, right? But we're also taking on the causes. We can say the suffering and the causes of the suffering of those beings, as well as the imprints. Yeah, so all that we're taking on when we do the inhaling. And then when we are looking at when we are working with the six realms, the beings of the six realms, then we also take in the particular suffering of that realm. So, for example, the beings that are in the hot hells, they suffer from intense heat. They get their, we can read descriptions of what happens there. Pabonka Rinpoche in the book Liberation in the Palm of my hand, of our hands, has a very vivid description of the hell realms. So if you want to read that, get an idea of what the hell realms are all about, then that will help you with this practice, with this visualization. Then the cold realms, then the people in the beings in the cold hell, they just, of course, they suffer from everything related to cold. Yeah. There are specific ways also that suffering is manifesting for them. And so if you read about that, the description of that, it will help you with the visualization. Yeah. Hungry ghosts suffer from hunger and thirst. Animals from stupidity, confusion. The demigods are jealous and frustrated, and the gods just um, mm, at the time of death, they waste away and they separate from all that they are attached to, all that they like. So that creates a lot of suffering for them. And human beings, we suffer from birth, aging, sickness, and death. So that so that is, in a nutshell, what that practice is all about. But it is very helpful when we are confronting difficult situations, like if we're sick, or if we're having any kind of problem, if we're experiencing fear, we can take on the fear of others. Yeah. And we can give them a peace of mind. We can give them joy, our joy, our peace of mind. We give them all that. If we are experiencing financial problems, again, we can do this practice by taking on the suffering generated by financial problems for all those people who are experiencing that. Yeah, so it's a practice that we can use specifically for those moments of hardship that we might encounter. Yeah. So now I want to continue with the tools that we can find in the whole mind training teachings, those teachings that are known as Lojong or mind training. And I want us to remember that when we are using these mind training techniques, what we're trying to do is bring our suffering and hardship onto the path. So use our suffering experiences, our challenges, our difficult situations, and use them to support our spiritual practice, to support the path, right? And that requires that we shift, that we do a shift on how we think about suffering. Yeah, that we completely change how we react to suffering. Yeah, because when we think about suffering, well, what's the first thing that happens? We become stressed, we become anxious, we reject it, we don't want it. Nobody wants suffering. So the fact that we don't want suffering, that we reject it, causes us more suffering. Yeah. And in the process of trying to reject and avoid suffering, we may create more negativity. So with the Lojong teachings, we have ways of rethinking suffering, rethinking difficult situations, to take advantage of them and to use them to further our spiritual growth, our spiritual path, right? So, for example, if we encounter a challenging situation, instead of feeling sorry for ourselves or getting angry, we actually rejoice. Yeah, the mind training teachings tell us to rejoice when we are experiencing difficulties. Yeah, why? Because this difficulty is helping us purify a past negative action, right? A negative action that we've done in the past. And so with this suffering, that negative action has now come to fruition. We're experiencing the result of that negative action. And it has manifested in a way that is a lot better than if it had resulted in an unfortunate rebirth in the hell realm. Yeah. So we're getting, so we're now purifying a past negative deed, and it's manifesting, in a small problem, or even if it's a big problem. It's really nothing when we compare it to the suffering that we would have had if we had been reborn as a hell being, or as a hungry ghost, or as an animal. Yeah, so we rejoice. Oh, wow, look at this. I am purifying. I could have been reborn as a tick, could have been reborn as a mosquito that somebody's just gonna slap like that and kill. But now, yeah, look at that. It's just manifesting. My negative karma of the past is just manifesting in this way. Great. How fortunate I am that this is what's happening. And then when we apply that kind of thinking, the suffering is much smaller. We don't feel it quite as much. And then we don't get all worked up about it, and we don't create more negative karma on top, on more suffering, right? So this is the advantage of training our mind in this way. Yeah. So if we never experienced suffering, we would not have the motivation to practice the Dharma, right? Because if everything is fine and dandy, why would we want an answer for suffering, a way out of suffering, if we're not suffering? Okay, so I see a hand. Jay has the hand up.
Thank you very much. I'm hoping you don't mind. I do have a question that's sort of tangentially connected to what you've just said. Yesterday, I had a rather strong aha experience. It was nothing new, but it was helpful. I had it on a deeper level, which is that my own peace of mind, mental health, like in my personal life, I'm surrounded by people who are kind and good. It's beautiful, yeah? And I had been with several of those the preceding couple of days. So I realized that that's the important part of life to me. Now, when I look at the news, which I try to avoid, and if I look at things at a different, higher level, politically, etc., I get highly distressed and angry. And what I realized was I didn't want those folks who I don't consider to be bodhisattvas, I don't want those folks to be determining my mental state, but rather I need to accept the fact that that's what they're doing. And also, it occurs to me, that's what powerful people have always done. Tried to set folks against one another. I mean, this is like, we're talking every civilization. This is how it works. This is how you gain power, is basically by being a bad guy. So I looked at that carefully and I just figured I'm going to let go of this. I'm going to let go of my anger, yeah, and separate myself out from it and hold in my mind that the major thing that's going on in life is that there is love and there is kindness. I'm surrounded by that. I try to give it back. And that was the thing that kind of motivates me, counters my anger. So it's similar but not the same as what you've just spoken about. Yeah, so I'm wondering if you could, I'm hoping I'm not too far off the track here. I don't think I am, but yeah, I'd like your input.
I think you're doing beautifully. And I think you're doing some of the things that we talked about in the first class, which is rejoicing about the good fortune that you have noticed. Because many times we don't notice a good fortune, right? We just focused on what's not working. And so you're focusing on what's working, and you've made a very conscious decision not to let what's not working affect you, right? So that's you've got really a very good thing going, the way that you've analyzed and applied. I think and it's helping you. And we have to realize that the Buddha taught this way, and they gave us these tools, and yet we all have sort of our own individual ways to manage and apply the tools that he gave us, right? And Buddha realized that, okay, we're not we don't have all the same dispositions. So because we don't have all the same dispositions, then we all need slightly different approaches, and he taught differently to different people based on that. So it's beautiful that you found something that is similar, but yet you've given it your very own flavor, which is wonderful, right? If anything, what I would um, suggest would be that as you are doing that, you also try to generate compassion for those folks that you described, that are right now being factors of upheaval in the world. All those different beings
Yeah.
who are generating,
I have found
a
a
lot
very,
of instability. And later on in the talk, we'll talk about how we do that.
yeah.
Yes,
I'll, vol-
but
I'll
it's
volunteer my method of dealing with that, which I have had the most success with, which is imagining myself to be their mother. And how would I feel if they were behaving that way? I would feel unhappy, but I would tend toward still feeling compassion toward them and thinking, okay, they're immature, they're making mistakes in their lives, they will grow out of this. Yeah? It's just a question of time. And by time, we are probably talking another lifetime or two. And so I have found that pathway very helpful, very helpful. It
that's
just
one that's
calms down my anger and my
yeah,
desire for
yeah.
revenge considerably.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Another thing that we can, another kind of mind training tool that we can bring to this particular scenario that you're mentioning, and you're doing beautifully, by the way. I think that's quite nice what you're doing. Another thing that we can bring to it is the recognition that we've created the karma to live in this particular time. Yeah, with all of these factors going on, with all of these different players, locally and in the world stage, right? It's our karma. We've created the causes and conditions to be here experiencing all of this turmoil. Yeah. And so, okay, I did it. I cannot blame other people. I cannot blame even the people who are quote unquote creating all this harmony. Cannot blame them. I created the causes, right? So then, I have to purify. If I don't want to be in this kind of situation again, I just have to purify and I have to create different causes. Yeah. So that's another way to kind of look at it without blaming anybody, without without generating anger, but at the same time taking responsibility for our situation, taking responsibility and say, okay, yeah, I created the cause in the past to be here, to be here in this situation that's not very fun right now. That is just very upsetting in some ways, but I can also create different causes for next time, and I'm going to work on that. And how? I'm going to use all these tools that the Buddha gave me. Yeah, the Buddha gave all of us. So thank you for sharing that. I think those are really nice ways to work with the mind in this particular situation. So good job. Um, so then, also, another way to look at it from the mind training point of view is that these folks who are creating this instability, who are creating all these, how can I say, this harmony, yeah, they are actually being kind to me. They're being kind to me. Why? Because they're helping me purify. First of all, they're helping me purify my past negativities. And second, yeah, they're creating an opportunity for me to practice the Dharma. So they're being kind. They're being kind, and therefore, I need to be grateful. I need to be grateful because practicing the Dharma is the best. Yeah. And purifying is great. And they're helping me do both. So thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Wow. Can you imagine you going up to some of those folks and saying, thank you for helping me practice the Dharma, and thank you for helping me purify it? Just see how
I
that is
have
a
I have
complete.
articulate when I was working, right? I did not, and obviously not with Buddhists. I did articulate that. It was sort of like, oh, Mr. Trump is helping me focus on spirituality.
That's right. That's right. That's
They
amazing,
didn't
isn't
quite
it?
understand what I was talking about. I tried to explain, but yeah, no, that was a hoot.
So, yeah, and then then it creates a light. It creates a lightness in our heart and in our minds, right? Um, and so we try to work with that. Mhm. And another way to look at it, well, this person is helping me subdue my self-cherishing. Yeah, self-cherishing is our greatest enemy. Our greatest enemy is not out there, and it's not Mr. Trump, even if he happens to deport us, kick us out of the US. He's not our greatest enemy. Our greatest enemy is our own self-cherishing. So yeah, let's get rid of that one. Let's get rid of that one. Yeah. And so when we start thinking in that way, our mind shifts, and then our body's not so tense, and then we can have a clear mind to really think about practical issues with a clear mind, without fear, without anger. Yeah. And so it does help us that way also. Yeah. Another way to look at these kinds of mm, suffering is that when we encounter difficulties, what happens? We become more humble. Yeah, we become more humble when we encounter suffering and difficulties, because we know then, we're not unassailable. We are not uh, mm, Iron Man and Iron Woman, or we're not Superman and Superwoman. We have our mm, vulnerabilities and weaknesses. We have to recognize that. And then you say, okay, well, I am not capable of avoiding every arrow that comes my way. And I have to be okay with that. And so that our pride immediately kind of sort of shrinks a bit. It shrinks a bit. And that's very helpful too. Yeah, when we recognize our own and accept our own vulnerability. Now, this does not mean that we are not going to put safeguards, yeah, that we're not going to do whatever is practical to sort of ensure our well-being, right? It doesn't mean that. But we're going to do it with a different kind of a mindset, with a different kind of an attitude, not an attitude of anger or fear, right? But rather as a practical issue. We're gonna take care of what we need to take care of so that we can be okay, so that we can benefit others. Yeah, if we do these things with that in mind, that I need to be okay so that I can benefit others, so that I can uh, you know, help others with their issues, then we have to do what we need to do, right? So it's just a matter of if we're going to do it with a self-cherishing mind or if we're going to do it with an altruistic mind. Yeah. And also when we are suffering, yeah, we can take a look at, okay, what did we do in the past that created the causes for this situation? And then knowing that we don't want to suffer through this again, we're going to want to abandon those causes, not to repeat them. So it's actually helping us create a better future for ourselves. You know, suffering actually can help us create a better future for ourselves if we identify what the causes are, and then we don't repeat them. Yeah. My one of my teachers used to say that she imagined a certain individual as a baby, a certain individual, problematic individual, as a baby. Yeah, and then how can you be mad with baby? I think along the same lines of what Jay was saying. How can you be mad with the baby? Yeah, at some point, that baby was loved by the parents, by the mom, right? And so, how can babies are so cute and adorable. How can you be mad at that person if you think of them as a baby? Mhm. Um, Another thing that she would say was when she was doing purification, that she would imagine that all of the difficult people were with her doing the purification also. So you can put the whole Congress there. You can put all the difficult world leaders there, and they are all purifying with you. And so, great, yeah, it's great. You're imagining that they're purifying all their wrong views, all their negativities, all their anger, all their prejudices. And so your practice buddies. They are your practice buddies. So you can open your heart that way a little bit to them. Okay. So suffering makes us want to abandon the causes, yeah. Um, and this is another what's the word that I'm looking for? Surprising. It is another surprising way to look at it from the Lojong point of view, that when we're doing Lojong, we're actually thinking it's better to experience suffering than happiness. Yeah, is it better to experience suffering than happiness? How is that? Yeah. And so why would you look at it that way? Well, because suffering uh, exhausts all of our negativities, whereas uh, the good situations, yeah, the happy situations, they actually exhaust our merit, right? So the more happiness, the more good things that happen to you, the lesser merit you're gonna have, because you're using up your merit for all that good stuff. And then you actually have to start creating more merit so that you don't completely run out of merit. So you get more tired that way. You work harder that way. Whereas if you're getting problems, the only thing that's happening is that all your past bad karma is getting wiped out. So hallelujah. Let's get all the bad karma wiped out with suffering, right? So this is another way to look at it that helps us deal with suffering. Yeah, help us. And if we think this way, if we utilize these tools, this new way of thinking, what happens is we suffer less. Yeah, we suffer less. Yeah. And that's exactly what we want. And at the same time, we're generating bodhicitta. At the same time, we're generating wisdom. At the same time, we're generating merit. So it's a win-win situation. Win-win. Yeah. So these Lojong teachings are fabulous. Are fabulous. When we remember to apply them. Yeah. And that's the trick. We have to remember to apply this way of thinking. Yeah. So another way, to apply this is when we're criticized. Yeah. And And many of us have aversion to being criticized. Yeah? When we are using these mind training tools, actually criticism is great. Yeah. Praise is poisonous. Praise is poison. It feeds our ego, and it feeds our attachment. It feeds our self-cherishing. So praise is poison. Whereas criticism, it's wonderful, because then we can take a look at our faults. Somebody's showing us the kindness of showing us our faults. And once we can see our faults, what we can do, we can fix them, right? Someone is telling us, hey, here is something you need to work on. And we should be grateful, because now we have an opportunity to fix it. Yeah, got work to do, yes. We're not wasting our time in samsara. We're getting better all the time. And the more criticism, the better we get. Criticism is a blessing from the gods. It's a blessing. It's a blessing. Because it really helps to keep our pride in check. Yeah, it helps to create. Also, my teacher used to say that in the monasteries, when there is a monk or several monks who are doing really well in debate, and they become a little puffed up, immediately all the other monks help them to bring that pride down. They immediately get, it's like first aid. Let's give them first aid to make sure that that pride doesn't become a real huge sore, yeah, in their mind. So yeah, we don't let them do that. So when we feel happy and comfortable and everything is going well and we have no worries, yeah, then we know, and we should remember, this is the result of my virtue. This is the result of my merit. Yeah. Therefore, if I want this to continue, I have to continue to create more merit, because I am exhausting. I am using up my merit. My storage of merit, I'm using it up with all these good conditions. Yeah. So I have to create more so that I can have good conditions in the future. If I use it all up now, what am I going to get in the future? Yeah. What am I going to get in the future? Conversely, if I am undergoing a lot of hardship, a lot of problems, then wow, I am really purifying negativities like there is no tomorrow. And it means less suffering in the future. Less suffering in the future. So I have chronic migraines, I have chronic headaches, and I've had that for over 40 years. So it's like, I'm thinking, geez, next lifetime, I'm gonna be the healthiest person on this planet. Next lifetime, not even a cold. So it's true. It's like, okay, I'm doing it all now. Hey, I decided I was gonna get rid of it all in one lifetime. So bring it on. Next lifetime, I'll be just healthy as can be. So the idea of these different ways of thinking is to stop being afraid of problems and difficulties, and just welcome them as an opportunity to purify, to develop humility, to deepen our practice, to develop fortitude, yeah, and to mm, reduce our self-cherishing, to really go for that self-cherishing. That's our real problem. And we can also use it, of course, to generate our bodhicitta, to support our bodhicitta, our practice of the awakening mind and our wisdom. So um it's it's a way also to connect. It's a way also to connect with the suffering that we see in the world. Yeah. It's a way to connect. Because when we grow accustomed to our good situation, sometimes it may be difficult to connect with those who don't have that good situation. And we may become a little indifferent or callous, yeah, in our relationship to other folks that are not as fortunate as we are. So to help us avoid that, yeah, to connect and understand the suffering of others, yeah, when we are experiencing suffering, we can think all those beings who are experiencing this type of suffering even more often than I do. Yeah? May I take on their suffering? May I make that suffering my own? And with my suffering, may I diminish theirs. With my suffering, may I diminish their suffering. And then we have a connection. Then we are connecting very deeply to all those other beings who are suffering. Many of them much more than we are. And so we don't feel detached. We don't become indifferent. Yeah. And that sort of feeds our compassion. Yeah. Sort of feeds that, which is so important in our spiritual development. Um, and when we are in touch, yeah, when we connect with the suffering of others, it's so much easier to generate bodhicitta. Yeah. You see, it's interesting that His Holiness has made a comment about this. Yeah, he says, bodhicitta, it's easy to understand, but it's very difficult to develop because of our self-cherishing. It's so strong. Yeah? We all love to hear about bodhicitta. We all love to hear about compassion. Yeah, it's so wonderful. We start talking about it. But to actually develop that in our mind, according to His Holiness, who is the expert on this, yeah, it's very difficult. And then he goes on to say something that is even more surprising. He says, you know, it's the opposite for generating wisdom. Yeah. Understanding the wisdom of emptiness is hard to understand it. He says, but once you understand it, it's comparatively easier to realize it. And I was going like, what? Yeah. And we all think that bodhicitta is the easiest. And His Holiness says that's not the case. Yeah. So anything that we can do, yeah, to strengthen that foundation to generate bodhicitta, we're doing ourselves a great favor. And by extension, we're doing a great favor for all sentient beings. Because it's hard to realize. Yeah. Okay. We've talked about purification already a lot, and generating of merit. I think we've covered everything that I wanted to cover in terms of mind training. So now I'm going to do a segue in however time we've got left to talk about metta, because this is the observation and suggestion that I mentioned earlier when Jay was sharing with us her example, and that's a very nice sharing. So let's go talk about metta, because metta also helps us in difficult situations, in difficult times. So how is that? So I'm going to share a story. How many of you have heard the story behind the Metta Sutra? No. Okay, maybe the story. It's a lovely story. And of course, you can embellish it more, or you can make it briefer. I'm going to try to make it briefer. Yeah, but it's still quite astonishing. So it's spelled with two T's, Metta. Okay, metta. And it means loving kindness. Although sometimes it's also translated as kind love, or sometimes just love. Yeah. I like the loving kindness translation, so I use that. Yeah. So on one occasion, the story goes that on one occasion, 500 monks, bhikkhus, right, monks, yeah, were giving a meditation homework. The Buddha gave them meditation homework. It says, you guys go to this place, to this forest. You go to this forest and you practice meditation on this particular object of meditation. That was the Buddha's directive to them. Yeah. So there they went to do exactly as the Buddha had advised them to do. They went to the forest. Yeah. And there are different ways to see this. Some people say that they found this amazing place, and next to that amazing place there was a village where they were welcomed by the villagers, and the villagers showed them some cabins or huts where they could practice. The villagers agreed to support their practice, so they found these wonderful conditions. Yeah. And there were spirits in this place, devas, or kinds of spirits, who also initially welcomed them, right? So they welcomed their presence. The devas who were residing in these trees in the forest, you know, were happy to see the bhikkhus, these monks. However, the monks were going to stay there for a long time. And the devas decided they didn't want these monks to be there for such a long time, occupying their forest. I mean, their welcome mat only extended so far. After that, it's like I'm gonna pull the rug from under their feet, and now we don't want them here. Right? So what happened was the devas, these spirits in the forest, got upset because the monks weren't leaving. Yeah. And so they began to disturb their meditation. They began to frighten them, do things to frighten the monks, and they wouldn't let them concentrate, right? It became so bad that some of them got sick. They weren't getting anywhere with their practice. They were all just so tensed up and stressed out and anxious about what the spirits were doing. Yeah. So finally, it got to the point where nobody's meditating, nobody's getting anywhere. Now they decided we're going to have to go. And we're going to have to go back to the Buddha and explain to him why we haven't meditated and what's happened to us here. Right. So they went back to the Buddha to tell the Buddha what happened to them. Yeah. So the Buddha listened to them. And the Buddha thought, okay, let me find another place. So Buddha was using his clairvoyant powers to try to figure out if there was another location where these monks could go to, where they could have a good meditation experience. Yeah. And Buddha was using his clairvoyance to look for a suitable place, and he couldn't find any other suitable place. He said, no, there is no other place for you to do this practice. You're going to have to go back to that forest. And the monks didn't want to go back there. It was a very inhospitable place. Yeah. So the Buddha said, okay, I understand you're having this issue with these spirits. So I'm going to give you the remedy for that. You're going to go back to that place. And as you're going there, you're going to be reciting and chanting this sutta called the Metta Sutta or the Metta Sutra, the Sutra of Loving Kindness. You're going to be all the way, as you go into that forest, you're going to be chanting this sutra. And so what happened was they got there, and the sutra helped them generate all this goodwill, all this compassion, all this kindness. Yeah, it helped them generate that. So they went into that forest with goodwill, with kindness, with compassion in their hearts as a result of reciting the sutra that the Buddha gave them. And the devas welcomed them and did not bother them again. They all were able to do their meditation without fear, without stress, without anxiety. And the story says that at the end of that period of meditation, all of these 500 monks attained arhatship. Yeah. So this was a very powerful sutra, very powerful practice that the Buddha gave them. Yeah. And so I'm gonna read just some portions of that sutra that contain the advice. I mean the pith advice. Yeah. So it says, let him not perform the slightest wrong for which wise men may rebuke him. Yeah. Let him think, may all beings be happy and safe. May they have happy minds. Whatever living beings there may be, feeble or strong, yeah, or the seekers and the attained, whether they're long, stout, or of medium size, short, small, large, those seen and those unseen, those dwelling far or near, those who are born, as well as those yet to be born. May all beings have happy minds. So you can imagine the monks are going and they are reciting this. May all beings be happy. May all beings have happy minds. May all beings be safe. Yeah. And those feelings start to be generated, arising in their minds of wishing everybody well, wishing everybody happiness, wishing everybody joy, wishing everybody safety. And pretty soon, all their minds were just filled with these kinds of wishes and the sweetness of kindness. And the spirits could sense that. Yeah. And that immediately placated them, placated those spirits. And made them help the monks instead of obstructing their practice. Yeah. And it continues to say, just as a mother would protect her only child with her life, even so, let one cultivate a boundless love towards all beings. Towards all beings, yeah? Let him radiate boundless love towards the entire world, above, below, and across, unhindered, without ill will, without enmity, yeah? And so that's precisely the practice of metta, generating loving kindness and radiating that everywhere. And when you have that, you will not be harmed. The Buddha said so. That's why he gave that practice to the monks. And the monks' experience was they were not harmed. Yeah? So the best protection against harm is goodwill, compassion, loving kindness, metta. Best protection, the best shield, the best bunker. Yeah? Oh. So, there's this wonderful book called the practice of metta by the practice of metta by Bhante Gunaratana. It's a beautiful book, and Bhante explains really well how to do this practice. I highly recommend this book. Yeah. So I'm just going to give you a very brief explanation, and we're going to spend the last few minutes practicing it. Okay. So first, just like we did with the taking and giving, first we're going to direct metta to ourselves. Yeah. First, we're going to direct the metta to ourselves, then to dear ones, then to those that we find difficult to deal with, or those that we have problems with, and then lastly to all sentient beings. Okay. So in the book, Bhante provides us with some words for our meditation. They're beautiful words. Yeah. So I'm gonna share those with you, and of course, this first uh, mm, sentiments are directed to ourselves. So there's a lot of I in these words that I'm going to read. But when we are practicing this for others, we just substitute the I with, the other noun, which could be may my parents, may my siblings, may Karen or Jack, or may all sentient beings. So we can substitute the I, yeah, in the meditations I'm going to read for those words when we are practicing for others. Yeah. But right now, we're going to start practicing with for ourselves first. Okay. So here are the kinds of things that we are going to wish us. Okay. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May no harm come to me. May no difficulties come to me. May no problems come to me. May I always meet with success. May I also have patience, courage, understanding, and determination to meet and overcome inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. Yeah. And so as we're repeating these words, yeah, we kind of start feeling that in our hearts. These words, repeating them over and over again, will generate a feeling in our heart, right? So we pay attention to that. We pay attention to how and when that feeling is arising. That feeling is incredibly important. Yeah. The words are just a mechanism to generate that feeling of loving kindness directed to ourselves, right? And then we can say, for example, may my mind be filled with thoughts of loving kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity. May I be generous. May I be gentle. May I be grateful. May I be relaxed. May I be happy and peaceful. Yeah, may I be healthy. May my words be pleasing to others. Yeah. And so we continue to express all these wishes, all these positive wishes for ourselves. And then when we can feel that loving kindness starting to sprout in our mind, in our heart towards ourselves, then we stop what we're saying and we just focus on that feeling. We just focus on that feeling. And it's a kind, gentle, sort of nurturing feeling. And in the beginning, it may be quite small and it may disappear quickly. Yeah. And when that happens, we go back to the repetitions. Until we sense that feeling again. And then we stop the repetitions and we just focus on that feeling. Until we can expand that feeling to really occupy our mind for longer periods of time. And that's how we generate metta to ourselves. And then we can use the same kind of sentiments to generate metta towards others. Yeah, loving kindness. Right? So instead of saying, may I be well and happy and peaceful, let's say, may my parents be well, happy, and peaceful, etc. Or may, substitute a friend, for example, may Jack be well, happy, and peaceful. May no harm come to Jack. Yeah. May no difficulties come to Jack. Yeah. May no problems come to Laura. May Laura always meet with success. May she always have patience and courage. And then, as we are repeating again all of these wishes, again we're going to start feeling this wonderful, kind, gentle, warm feeling in our heart towards Jack or Laura or our parents. And then we focus and we hold that. We hold that feeling. Yeah. And again, when that disappears, we start again with the wishes. Yeah, and repeat the whole process. After we've gone through all the people that are dear to us and to ourselves, all the people that are dear to us, then we can start with the people who are difficult. And I know you probably have a list of difficult people. Well, you can start with, you can go through that list. Of course, that list changes from day to day, right? Sometimes it's longer, sometimes maybe shorter. Then you go through that. And then lastly, when you're really going good in this practice, then you take all sentient beings in all the 6 realms again. Okay. And so that's the practice. And then how do we radiate love to all beings? Yeah. It's another some instructions for that in the book that I mentioned, Bhante's book. And so the instructions go like this. You envision the whole universe, the earth, the stars, everything. And then every being that you've ever met, as well as those you have not met, those that you can see and those that you cannot see. Yeah. And then you allow this loving kindness. Now that you're familiar, when you're familiar with what loving kindness feels like, and then you won't need to repeat all the words. You know what that feels like, and you can just try to generate it, yeah, without the words. Or if you need the words, you can still repeat the words until you generate it, right? You can still repeat the words until you generate it. And then when you feel it, right, you send that to all beings in the universe. Yeah. You send it in all the directions, north, yeah, to all the beings that are north of you, all the beings that are south of you, all the beings who are in the east, all the beings in the west, all the beings above, all the beings below. Yeah. You send it to them. And then you imagine that they receive that. They feel that. They receive it from you. And they immediately become pacified, happy, pacified, fulfilled. Yeah. Yeah. And so we can say, if we don't yet can just generate the feeling without the words, then we can use words like, may all beings be well and happy and peaceful. May no harm come to any of them. May no difficulties come to any of these beings anywhere. Yeah, may they have patience and courage and understanding and compassion and wisdom. And may they be able to overcome all of their problems. May they be able to be healthy, harmonious. Yeah, may they be able to be generous and gentle and grateful. So all these things, you can repeat them. And then when you generate that feeling, you just radiate it and send it out. And imagine that they receive it and they immediately become pacified and happy and content and peaceful. Okay, so in the last 15 minutes of the class, let's practice metta, okay? Let's start with ourselves. It's the easiest way. So we're going to generate all these wonderful wishes for ourselves, anything that we wish. And then we're going to be paying attention to when this feeling, this lovely, warm, kind, gentle feeling arises towards ourselves. And then we're just going to hold our mind there for as long as we can. And when it vanishes, we'll just start the process again. Okay, so we'll do that for the last 15 minutes of the class. So let's get started. As you're starting, I am going to remind you of the words in case you need some help and just give you some ideas, and then I'll let you go with it, okay? So may I be well, happy, and peaceful. May no harm come to me. May no difficulties come to me. May no problems come to me. May I always meet with success. May I also have patience, courage, understanding, and determination to overcome inevitable difficulties and problems in life. May my mind be filled with compassion, joy, equanimity. May I be generous. May I be gentle. May I be grateful. May I be relaxed. May I be happy and peaceful. May I be healthy. May my words be pleasing to others. Okay, take it from here. Okay. I hope that gave you some flavor for it, a taste of metta. And so now we can dedicate. And this is also the last class. So I hope that you were able to receive something that you find useful and helpful. And I hope you can practice it and derive the benefits from it. Okay. So let's dedicate on this wonderful merit. May whatever virtue I have collected benefit the teachings and all transmigratory beings, and in particular may it cause the essence of perfect pure Losandrapa's teachings to shine forever. May the precious supreme bodhicitta not yet born arise and grow. May that arising not decline, but increase more and more. In the land circled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. Peerless teacher, an assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for other living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Okay, have a wonderful rest of the evening and week, and continue enjoying the teachings that the center provides. This is a wonderful resource. So